Welcome. What is Titan? A no-code platform for Salesforce. What can you do with Titan? You can build forms, portals, document generation, e-signatures, maps, automation, and a lot more. Security is really important to us. Therefore, we are HIPAA compliant, PCI SSC compliant, GDPR 508, and ISO compliant. So, what are you waiting for? Schedule a demo with us at Form Titan and let us build the impossible for Salesforce.
We were just a bunch of nerdy kids who ignored the haters. We took their ridicule and we built on it. And when some of us gave up, well, we built on that too. Built resilience, built on a mission to make things a little better every day until the users came. Then the haters were VCs who scoffed at our audacity. This just isn't the way things are done. But we kept building. Users turned into teams, turned into companies, running their entire businesses on our apps. Then the software giants came after us. We weren't proven, we weren't fully featured, our radical cloud model wasn't secure. But we built on. And today, as companies adopt the cloud to move faster, teams are finding themselves slowed down by each other's efforts. The skeptics are claiming we'll never develop innovation at scale. But now, DevOps have come to the cloud, ushering in a new era of transformation. Companies can release on demand across hundreds of environments, innovating faster with fewer conflicts and fewer disruptions. There will always be challenges. There will always be naysayers. And we'll build on.
All right, thank you so much, Amit. And hello, hola, guten Tag, everyone. My name is Isabella Zatzek, a German native, coming to you live and in color, actually, from beautiful Denver, Colorado. So who am I? I'm a contrarian and fixer at heart, and no, there is no point in denying that. And what I'm most passionate about is what we're going to talk about today, which is about people and processes and different cultures. So a huge thank you to the virtual Dreamin team and all the sponsors today to putting this event together, and thank you to all of you for spending your time. This is basically my hair pre-COVID. So, okay, just that you know what you're actually, should be seeing. And let's dive right in. By the way, I'm gonna stop the video because our internet connection here is a bit wonky today, but I'll be back online and on video for Q&A. So, all right. What does it mean to operate globally? Okay. When a company expands into a global market, right, there are obvious external requirements such as rules and regulations, financials, competitors, infrastructures, you name it, right? But what about your internal structure and organization? How do you want to serve your global customers, and how will you stand out against local competitors and gain market share? And foremost, do you know the complexity of a market? And is this complexity beyond your core capabilities, requiring you to remodel your existing operating model? So those are the questions, right, that I would ask myself when I'm operating globally. It becomes the question of what we see and what we assume, or as I like to refer to it, the cultural iceberg. It is what I call the true drivers, values, and motivators, as well as taboos, to understand the cultural makeup of your team and the potential tripwires that could impact team building and collaboration down the road, right? A lot of these underlying beliefs and assumptions are actually subconscious. I mean, take a look at that picture. What is above the water and what is actually hidden below. I, for myself, can only advise you to take the time and make the effort to question these and potential impact they could have on your team and customer support in a market. Just think about it, right? I mean, yes, the language, the fine art, this is what we're seeing, the literature, holidays and festivals. And then below, I mean, just think about it, family values, right? Really important nowadays. Like, how does everyone experience times like these, right? What are cultures normally used to? So it's really, really fascinating to dive into that. The reason why I'm so passionate about is that back in my old days, when I worked for a Fortune 500 company, I was given the opportunity to build a global customer operations team for our global accounts division. The team and I had to go through a number of questions. Obviously, we built that team up from scratch, yes, with existing employees, but we never had a global accounts division. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to see it all through the eyes of our customers, their expectations and the market they operated in. So this is what we did, basically. We looked at 4 pillars that would make up our overall plan. First of all, strategy. Like, what are the industries that we're going to serve? What type of customers? Headquarter locations, global spend, growth, and global potential. We then moved on to the setup of the actual organization. So what support approach would make us actually unique with everyone out there, with our competitors? And what is expected in the industry from us? What functions could we merge to create a customer flow and a loop, to make it more repeatable and profitable and satisfactory? And there is a reason why I like to call it a customer loop and not a journey, because it just has to stay evergreen to a certain degree, right, with built-in flexibility. Thirdly, alignment. It's a buzzword, right, that has been around for a while. The way we wanted to look at it was, what can we do cross-functionally, cross-culturally, and virtually? The rules of engagement and communication with our internal stakeholders, clearly define interfaces, handovers, and deliverables, especially when you're working in a global and international setup, right? And many customer segments you serve, you need to create those specific workflows. And last but not least, what everyone always talks about, obviously, are results. So what do customers expect? And what we did basically is we went out to, when it was ready for a beta launch or just to really get some feedback, we went out to a small group of our customers whose feedback we were really, really interested in. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't just the ones giving us positive feedback all the time. So we really went to them, asked them what is important to them, what KPIs they care for, to define really efficient, smart, and foremost meaningful KPIs. Metrics that will move the needle and not just report them for, the sake of reporting. However, a strong and high-performing team culture is more than just written policies and documents that live on websites and handbooks. I hope you would agree with me on that. While going through all the stages, though, my endeavor personally was to combine respect, leadership, guidance, empowerment, trust, and performance. I mean, yes, in many ways buzzwords, but it was really important to me because I had a team of 130 people spread across the entire globe, and bringing them together in one global team. So what I came up with was the 80-20 rule or principle. Yes, we all know it, right? The Pareto principle, but I wanted to put a special twist on it and to have an impact. So my definition and application of the 80-20 rule is as follows. The 80% is the core guidance, philosophy, the message and the goals, right, that apply to everyone in the team when working with each other and with customers, being on that one same page. The 20%, however, I wanted to dedicate to regional distinctions, to cultural rituals and preferences, and yes, differences, because there will always be differences no matter what you do. For me, that is just human and cultural nature. The 20% was giving me the freedom to trust my team to be self-sufficient and making decisions right on location, knowing their own culture and market best. I truly believe it is possible to manage and inspire people without knowing, I mean, it is impossible, sorry. I believe it is impossible to manage and inspire people without knowing what is important to them and what they need to perform at their best. I also believe that when you're operating globally, you will always be the guest in another country, no matter whether you manufacture, you produce, deliver, and employ. Once a company understands this, respect and trust and loyalty will start to grow with your customers in that market. My experience has always been that when you make an effort to get to know the culture and be curious about business customs and traditions, there is an almost instant rapport created between the company, its employees, and customers. So let's all take a deep breath at the moment, because that is like already a lot of information coming to you. And because we all know we like to hear stories and storytelling is a connection, I wanted to do a tail timeout to also give you a bit of an insight how that actually worked then once my team was up and running, and how much culture and effort made a difference. So at one point in my life, at college to be exact, so yes, quite a time ago, I was actually trilingual, German, English, and Spanish. So unfortunately, I did not keep up with my conversational Spanish. And when the day came to support customers in Latin and South America, especially, it became quite an interesting experiment on my side, because I wanted to, lead the way and, show what we could do. So when I met with some of my customers in Argentina for the first time, I told them that, while I can understand Spanish, I will not get my act together to reply in Spanish. Yes, blame my, German heritage, trying to be a perfectionist. I just didn't have the guts, right? I didn't have the guts to reply or speak in Spanish. What happened then was, though, really, really amazing. The customers almost immediately relaxed. I was very interested because they provided feedback and talked about various business opportunities that I'm sure we would have not heard about otherwise. They were really forthcoming. The reason was simple. The customers deeply appreciated the effort we made, which in turn gave them the choice to speak in whatever language that was comfortable to them during our meetings. I mean, ultimately, they went back and forth between Spanish and English. What I'm trying to bring across, hopefully, is it wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about, even pandering to them. No, it was about cultural commitment and support. Because although we sold services to them and we obviously relied on them, it was really about making that emotional connection, and also not coming in with a preconceived notion of, this is like an international language, we all now have to speak English. So it was an effort that we made, and it really, so to speak, paid off. So you're probably going to wonder what this slide is all about, right? Tony Soprano, and it's like, oh my Lord, how do we suddenly get to, a mafia boss? But bear with me, all right? Just bear with me for a second here. So in my 80-20 approach, imagine the 80% that we just talked about, right, being on one page, to be like the Sopranos. A team and a message that were properly organized, fully dedicated, and high performing. Based on the principle, we always do everything together. Truly a band of consistency, which meant that my team and I were partners. They knew that their questions and concerns were heard and they were valued. No matter whether they worked in their home in Colombia, in a data center in Hong Kong, or in a small sales office in Dayton, Ohio. I cannot stress the importance of this partnership, this unity enough. It really has the power to bridge any communication gaps and mitigate against any perceived advantages, right? Tied to specific regions. Let's think about that for a second. For example, when you're thinking you can only thrive or receive a promotion when you are located at headquarters or in a big corporate office. I'm sure many of you on this call participating, it's not news that we've seen certain programs just being rolled out in certain regions, right? I would hope, and especially Salesforce is paving the way of making sure we all are coming together, and it's not so dependent on where you're actually located to have access. Global teams have an amazing potential to increase sales and productivity, to foster innovation and reach new markets. Access above all is key to reduce risk of any regional or cultural silos. Don't get me wrong, there will always be silos by default. That is what the 20% is for, however. Remember when I said like the 20%, that is everything I want to know, but it is there for a reason. It's cultural nature. So it's not necessarily that silos are bad. It depends on how you live with them, how you evolve with them to actually get the best strengths out of it. And by the way, what I mean by access is, I mean access to people, access to data, systems, technology, access to management and executives and opportunities. This is so essential to being part of a team and feeling integrated. This is what access and transparency are. So many cultures have their own way in doing things their way. And at times, just because we're only used to our way, right? It will not appear to make any sense to us, or it will not fit into our ways of doing business. I've been there many of times. All I can say is accept it and find a way to turn this into an opportunity for you to gain a different business perspective. This is what self-development is really all about. But yes, there are ways to reduce the strain that cultural differences and assumptions can cause on relationships. So we're halfway through our presentation. So now I want to dive really into what my proposal would be to build those strong, diverse teams, right? So yes, I try to play with various acronyms. I should have said that from the beginning. A bit of a nerd when it comes to those. I guess it's my almost 2 decades in telecommunications that have shaped my view of acronyms. Yes, I love them. So you can call that USAC, but let's dive right into what I actually mean by that. Let's start with unorthodoxy. And yes, I actually checked that this is truly a word, although who knows, in times like these, why not make up words on our own, right? So unorthodoxy. What I mean by that is be unorthodox and step outside your culture zone. What has always been near and dear to my heart was unorthodox and diverse leadership appointments from a cultural perspective. Diversity is all the rage for a reason, and it couldn't be more important for a global management and leadership team. When you portray yourself as a global company, wouldn't you want the setup of your global leadership to actually be global with various nationalities and language capabilities? Yes, to cover a wide range of markets and demands, but also a wide range of opinions, perspectives, and just ways of doing business, because we on our own can't have all the answers. it is about providing job development and promotions, no matter what region you're in. I just talked about that, a minute ago, to mitigate any perceived advantages that are tied to certain regions. I mean, here's a brief story about what I would have called now the love and hate relationship I experienced between the European continent and the UK back in the day. Many American, well, basically most non-European companies have always chosen London, right, as their European headquarter. I'm not going to go into what is happening now, but obviously with the intent to concentrate their executive power in that location. Again, this meant that employees on the continent would not even apply for leadership positions if they wanted to stay in their home region in continental Europe. It was just sometimes there wasn't even anything available. You potentially really would have had to relocate. So what that did, it actually caused friction and frustration and, dare I say, even resentment to a degree, right? And this is obviously tied into a lack of engagement and dedication and productivity. And I'm not here to really judge one way or the other, but there is so much potential everywhere. And yes, it takes time, it takes effort to dive into that, but it's unbelievable what you already have available at your fingertip as a company. Next up, yes, I'm so looking forward to this one because yes, I told you I'm a process and system nerd. Systems. Top-notch and robust systems, right? CRMs, video conferencing that allow effortless interaction. We are experiencing this right now, how important it is to allow for that seamless capability. And yes, hand in hand go structures and processes to allow that collaboration and productivity. Otherwise, I mean, how do you want to be productive? How do you want to work with your stakeholders and feel accomplished or get stuff done, right? That matters to you, that matters to your colleagues. And this is especially important when you're not just like, even within a global company, you have many channels you work in. You can work in a domestic one, like supporting governments, mid-markets, enterprises, you name it. It's important to have flushed out systems to help you achieve that. Next up, alignment. And yes, what I'm a huge advocate for and what I do with my own clients is to really look at role mandates and responsibilities. Are they clear? Especially when you have a multinational team supporting your customers. Does everyone know what the other person is doing in that workflow? What comes before you? What comes after you? What are the dependencies? And it's not about someone pulling out their job description to say, okay, this is just what I'm doing. It's about living collaboration, and it also needs to make sense in your role mandate. Goes hand in hand with transparent rules of engagements, points of contacts, SMEs and regions, especially for after hours and holidays. You don't want to really trip over everyone's feet and suddenly you have 5 people tripping over each other working on the very same issue. I mean, I love that saying that, yes, there can be too many cooks in a kitchen. And what I truly want to point out is what is priceless and should be mandatory, not just on a management level, but really company-wide, is trainings on cultural context, rituals, like sensitivities, especially for global leaders. Because if I would have done a poll here, I think we could all share rather embarrassing examples on the lack of cultural sensitivities. I mean, again, it's not that they, were all negative. I think there is something like, some might be funny, but it's really, again, about respect. Respect you show your own team, your own colleagues, and foremost your customers. And then last but not least, connection. What I mean by that is connection within. I'm a huge fan of exchange programs between regions. It's almost like, think about back in the day, like I was like grateful and fortunate enough to take part in exchange programs when I grew up. I spent, weeks in Oxford with the host family, or back then in California, and it just helped me grow so much. So what about doing those exchange programs between regions, and not only on a management level, to provide that exposure? You can see talent firsthand. You can see potential right there, and especially for regions that are so decentralized and out in no man's land. I get it, right? Travel budgets for team meetings or exchange programs. We all watch our budgets, right? We want lean organizations without operational costs going through the roof, but you cannot replace the value and greatness that happens when leaders that are scattered across so many regions come together to define initiatives, right? To brainstorm, to work on strategic development, and to get to know each other. Spend time with your team, not just in team meetings or on the phone, but in the trenches. And please do not mistake that with micromanagement. That is not what it's about. It really, or what I'm talking about is caring, by not losing touch what is happening in the trenches. We have seen so many statistics, and that's why I didn't add any in here. It's, you know what I'm talking about, right? We've seen those statistics, like how much, out of the picture certain managers, leaders are, not necessarily by their own fault or because they're bad people, but make time to see what is happening on the front line and what your team is dealing with to really, understand them. It will save so much, actually, energy, and it will create an amazing and very, very strong bond with your team. And then, what can I say? Then there are the daily things in life. And things that we might take for granted, and they might even seem trivial, but they have a huge impact on your employees and your customers. For example, time zone. Time zones are, in my book, opportunities, right? Please respect them, as well as regional hours of business, and be specific when scheduling meetings. Before I put that into my presentation, I was like, shouldn't that be so common sense? But it really isn't. And having talked to so many leaders over especially the past months, the past 2 months, it's actually scary how much time zones are still considered an issue, an obstacle in seamless collaboration. Think about the power you actually have with dealing in time zones. It's not the people, it's most probably the workflow you have that gives you a headache on how to utilize time zones the best, right? And then flexibility, as well as clear communication, instructions, and boundaries and limitations are key to build a successful culture of cultures. I want to say that again, to build a culture of cultures. Because yes, you can have a company culture, but when you're a global company, what I would love to see is building a culture of cultures, and boundaries and limitations are part of it. I mean, even the Avengers didn't have all the answers, right? I mean, it takes admitting to your own limitations as much as fully living in your strength. And yes, good times, great stories, and even greater lessons learned. I'm sure we can share so many of them. So there is a quote that I found by Paulo Coelho that I wanted to share with you. So I'm going to read that to really drive this whole presentation home, and couldn't have said it any better. So culture makes people understand each other better. And if they understand each other better in their soul, it is easier to overcome the economic and political barriers. But first, they have to understand that their neighbor is in the end just like them, with the same problems, the same questions. Absolutely love that one. And guess what? We're almost at the end of this session. But before we part, and if you're at odds of what market to explore next or what to find out, found this gem on the World Wide Web. It's a map showing you where the happiest and the least happy and fastest growing markets are. And believe it or not, I'm happy to say that thanks to my living in Germany, Scotland, Ireland, and the USA, I'm a solid, grounded, and happy 7. And yeah, I know what you're all thinking. You all thought the word happy in German does not fit into one sentence. So yes, normally it's a bit of a joke that works better in a crowd that I can see. But again, thank you so much for spending your precious time with me and the fabulous virtual dreaming team today. You're really so appreciated. And
Yep. Once again, thanks. Thanks for joining, and thank you for sharing your wonderful insights with us.
well, thank you, and everyone enjoy the rest of the day, and much success to you, Amit. You're doing a fabulous, fabulous work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye bye. Have a great day.
Bye.